that there are many foods that I dearly miss from the United States. And I was just thinking about the other day, what am I going to talk to Brian about? And what popped into my head is related to that because I feel like we were absolutely lucky to have the cafeteria we had at Victor J. Andrew. True or
uh,
false?
I mean, I guess it was pretty good. I remember it being better than, because I went to two high schools, and I remember it being better than my first high school. But I don't really remember a lot of detail about it. I'm sure if you tell me, it'll remind me of some of the foods and stuff.
Well, the one thing that I miss most in terms of food and the availability here is sandwiches. Just
Ah,
a nice sandwich. Here, the only option is this beautiful artisan bread with a slice of cucumber, cheese, slice of
ah.
salami, tomato. It's very basic. There are no sauces, there are no wonders to splash on top of it. Outside of that, you have Subway, but Subway is awful. It is a shameful stain on the United States. But the cafeteria had an entire line dedicated to deli sandwiches. Do you remember that?
I think so, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it,
I
it
guess
was
so.
it was like a deli, and you can
Yeah.
choose what kind of cheese you want, what kind of meat you want, the toppings, and it was actually pretty good. Get a
I
bag of
mean,
chips.
yeah, you can't mess up a deli sandwich too badly if you just got okay ingredients and stuff.
Right.
And if you pick it all yourself, then it's amazing, right? Yeah, I
Absolutely.
mean, I would venture to guess that it's worse here than it is there in terms of like sandwich availability. Like, I mean, I, I feel kind of glad that I can get like this kind of really generic white bread, and I use that to make sandwiches sometimes. But like, the only meat I can get in our town is like like ham, like just smoked ham, and that's it.
Oh,
Um, and it's like very prepackaged, like that kind of ham. There's no delis here at all. Um, in Saigon, there's you could get some stuff, but there's probably still not any like delis where they like you know uh, like cut stuff to order or anything like that. That just doesn't exist here. Nor did it exist like that in Shanghai. Um, but yeah, so every once in a while I could get like prepackaged salami or something, but it's quite expensive and it's like, you know, it always tastes a little like plastic when it's been packaged up and vacuum sealed and all that stuff. So it's never that exciting.
that's my dilemma as well. I've not seen any location that's shaving the meats, slicing the cheeses, fresh to order. There, it just doesn't exist. Like I said, we have Subway, but there's nothing fresh about that except for their commercials, their advertising.
Yeah.
You know,
You know who makes their own deli meats?
I would imagine Dom.
Dominic.
Yeah, it has to be
Yeah.
Dom.
He makes like all the Italian, like he makes like salami and whatever. I don't even know the names of things, but he like smokes them in his basement and all this
Oh,
stuff. So
wow.
yeah, yeah. It's something you could think about doing as a hobby. You never know. I mean, like pick like one thing that you'd like to try and make and, you know, see if you could do it. I mean, I don't think it's that hard. It's just time consuming and um, requires a little bit of space.
Well, I think if I were to say, yeah, that's a pretty good idea, I should try that, it would be discounting the effort made by the Dom. I mean, I have hats
Well,
off to
I mean, it's
Dom.
not like you could, yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
mean,
but
he's a real catch. Somebody ought to swoop him up quick off his feet because who the hell is making their own deli meats in their basement? Yeah, you
uh,
can learn it, but how many people actually would do it?
yeah, yeah.
That's top shelf action right there. Oh my gosh.
He's
Will
he's
you
got a
be
lot of like,
can you be my neighbor?
he's got a lot of interesting hobbies like that. You know,
Do they
he
all revolve
collects.
around meat?
No, no. I mean, like he collects uh, cameras, like instant cameras. Um, what else does he do?
That's
I
fun.
don't know. He just like once he like gets interested in a subject, he'll like really go deep into it.
That's amazing. That's the kind of friend you want. That's a good
Hmm.
guy. Hey, you were saying the white bread thing. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Oh, well, that's all I was gonna say is I get that white bread and I can make like a grilled cheese with it or uh, an occasional ham sandwich. Oh, and I could get bacon, so I could do a BLT, which
huh,
is good.
those are good.
Um, yeah, but yeah, I do miss deli sandwiches. When I go home, I get them for sure.
Well, what I wanted to ask you though is that you have created this new series of videos on your YouTube channel, which I very much enjoy. It's like this
Thank
amazing
you.
thing to wake up and have the notification um, of, of a new video from Brian Hofmeister because I know that this is going to be my coffee talk that I so desperately want to have, you know? So I sit there, I have my coffee, and I watch. And in the last one, you opened up with this basically candid camera moment where you forgot the camera was rolling and it's you eating a sandwich watching TV. And I guess that's some of that white bread you're talking about. And correct me if I'm wrong, did you cut it into triangles?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's cute.
I always do that when I make my own sandwiches.
And you do four triangles or two?
Oh no, just I cut it in half, in a
Okay.
diagonal half. Yeah, no, not like tiny triangles. I think maybe it was half finished, so it looked like half a triangle or something.
So two
Or maybe it
questions.
just. Hmm.
Can you live without the triangle? If someone cuts it the other way, is it
Oh
somewhat
yeah,
disappointing?
yeah, yeah. I, I'll eat it anyway. I'm not like obsessive about it, but I do it when I make them. I don't know. I just do.
You like to
What's
eat
your other
that
question?
that tip, right? You like to start with the tip, or do you go right in the middle?
I just find it easier to handle than a whole sandwich. Like if you've got a whole sandwich, sometimes like things fall out of it more easily and stuff. When you've got the half, you've got all the edges covered while you're eating. So
Hmm.
I like that.
Yeah, I like the triangle too. I like how the crust is kind of not. Uh, well, I like how the crust has those moments where you bite off a lot of it at once, and you kind of get it out of the way, and then you have that island in the middle there, and it's just.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but the other question was, what was in the sandwich? Because you just basically listed how very small the options are out there.
I don't remember I mean, because I made that video, like I filmed that video like almost like 3 weeks ago now, and I don't remember um,
Mm.
uh, what I made. It was either a grilled cheese or a BLT or a ham sandwich. It couldn't. Those are really the only three things I can make with bread.
Okay. Well, since I'm a bread nerd and a sandwich nerd, what kind of cheese are you using for grilled cheese in Vietnam?
So there's just like one really common brand, and it's like a cheddar cheese. Um,
Okay.
and you could either get strong and bitey or
Hmm.
uh, extra flavor. Like they're just generic cheddar. Actually, today I made one. So we had some leftover guacamole from last night. So I made a grilled cheese with cheddar, um, Gouda, and guacamole, and it was really good. That's what I made for breakfast or lunch, lunch this morning, this afternoon. I don't know. I've been getting up quite early, so like my lunch is still in the morning now.
Uh-huh. What's quite early? What time?
6:30.
Okay.
I mean, that's not crazy early, but that's early for me. I mean, I'm used to getting up at like 9 or something, but it's just been getting earlier and earlier as I get older.
Yeah, same here. 6:30 is kind of norm. 7 is sleeping in
Yeah.
for me. Back to the lunch line at Victor J, just one other item that to me is why we're so very thankful for Victor J. They had a line for just Mexican food. You can get taco salad by the pound, whatever you want. They weigh it out for you, and it was actually pretty good.
I don't know why I can't remember any of that. That's so strange. I mean, I remember the lunch room. I mean, I remember where we ate, and I remember like, you know, the stage was on one end, and
Mhm.
all of the food booths were on the other, right? But
Mhm.
I don't remember actually. I don't ever remember like going up and picking things out and getting the food, and I remember sitting in the bleachers or the tables, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, that's so strange.
Yeah, I remember that I think every day or maybe it was once a week, they would also have a special. There was one
Hmm.
line dedicated to whatever the special was of that day or week, and it could be anything. And then they also had hot dogs and hamburgers, and they also had salad bar. I mean, it was pretty impressive for like a high school in the suburbs of Illinois. Um,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, so much so that if that very same cafeteria were to open here in my town, I would be doing cartwheels in the street, man. Like it would be so amazing to me. I'd go there every day, and that's kind of joyful and a little sad.
Yeah. I hear you. That's so funny. I can remember eating food at my previous school because it was sort of more. It was like worse, right? Like
Hmm.
I remember more one of the things that I liked at my old school was like a pizza puff. you
Pizza
know,
puff, yeah, yeah.
that was like the premium thing. And then they had bad pizza slices that were not very good at all, and they had like breakfast sandwiches which were pretty good. Those were like the two things I liked was pizza puffs and breakfast sandwiches. Um, so it's strange that I remember the like not so good food from my other school, not the good food from my later school. And like usually I remember things from my second school more clearly just because it was the fresher memory.
Hmm.
Um, it's interesting memory thing.
I have many memories of pizza puffs, but all from Mickey's. Did you ever go to Mickey's?
Mickey's.
There was a couple
I,
locations.
I
One was
believe
in Old
so. Yeah.
Tinley.
Yeah. I'm sure I went a couple times, but I didn't go often.
Mmm, pizza puff, triple Big Mickey, root beer float. That was the ultimate for me. Back when I was a teen, or I guess a preteen even, I would tear through fast food and eat so much of it. I remember going to Arby's and having two beef and cheddars, curly fries, Jamocha shake, and no problem, but that would kill me today. I would never be able to eat all that.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think like one of my favorite restaurants in Chicago, like kind of fast foody restaurants or whatever, before I left was this burger place in Evanston called Edzo's, and it was just like a hamburger place. They had like several kinds of hamburgers, and you could get griddled or flame broiled, and um, they had shakes and stuff, and like I remember the last few times that I went, I was like, ugh, I feel so gross after all of this food. And I was like weaning myself off it. I was like, I can't do this that often. I think even last time I went home, I didn't go. And like, it was like the couple times before that, I was like, I gotta go to Edzo's this time. But this time I was just like, I don't need to go.
More and more, that's what's happening to me. In the beginning, when I'd fly back to the United States for a vacay, I would have to just load up on every single disgusting delight that was available, like nonstop. I didn't care if it made me feel sick, even. I didn't care if it made me feel ill. I just somehow felt like I needed to do it so I can just go the next year until the next trip. But more and more, I'm losing interest in it because of the feeling
Yeah,
it gives me. But
yeah.
one funny thing is that the relation of gross and burger, you just brought up those two words. Gross in German means big.
Uh huh, uh huh.
So often, I don't really pick up on it as much anymore, but when I first moved here, I thought it would be hilarious. I thought it was hilarious when I'd see a big sign saying, extra gross burger. And I'm like, who the fuck wants to eat a gross burger? But out here,
It's
people are
just
just
got like
chomping left and right
garbage
on
on it.
gross burgers all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, French, same thing. Gros is big.
Are there any Vietnamese words that sound like an English word? Anything like that? Any crossover?
Let's see. No, because it's so tonal, nothing sounds familiar, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it like uh, the one language thing that I find very amusing is like the letter X is a sort of a prestige letter. Like um, a lot of like the big companies here end in the letter X, but the Vietnamese don't pronounce an X the way we do. So like for example, the company that owns a lot of the buildings and businesses in the city I live in is called Becamex. But anyone who like says it aloud is they say Becamec.
Mm.
Um,
Like a C or a K?
like yeah, like a CK or whatever. Yeah,
Mm.
and like it's so ingrained in them. Like Jeff's students that are learning English, they just can't say it an X sound. They just have a lot of problem. Like basically, like all of Vietnamese, there's all the final or final syllables in their words are not like they all end in like ah or they don't they're vowels not consonants, so
Mm-hmm.
that it's very difficult for them to end like a word, most words with like a final consonant sound, something like that. So yeah, but it's really funny and like so not only that, but like the brand of soap and deodorant that's really popular is called X-Men, but they call it Ekman, and it looks just like X-Men, like the Marvel characters. Like they don't have Marvel characters on it, but it's written like the X-Men
Oh, funny.
Marvel thing, yeah. Um, but I just think it's so weird that it's like X is like and even the word luxurious is X. I think it's XAXI, Sasi. I think it's that, but it's pronounced Sasi, not obviously. Um, uh, but yeah, so it's really weird that it's like the luxury letter and no one knows how to pronounce it, or
Yeah.
at least.
Only the very few privileged.
Um, but that's because up until I don't know how long ago it was, they had characters more like Chinese, and
Mm.
then the French kind of updated their language to have uh, like the Roman or whatever alphabet, and then they basically made up ways to represent their sounds. Um, so before it didn't matter, like who knows what an X looked like to them before.
Well, speaking of food, I did have a random thought. You could open up a place and call it maybe grilled Vietnamese cheese because you have that lovely Gouda cheddar guacamole combo. I mean, maybe something's
Uh-huh,
popping
uh-huh.
off there.
I don't think that people like cheese around here.
Ah.
I mean, it's not very common, and it's like not at all on like in Vietnamese food. Like they just don't use it as an ingredient. I mean, maybe people would be like, "Oh my God, what is this thing?"
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I kind of have. I've gotten so much in the habit of like making my own food that I'm not really as like in tune with what I miss anymore. Um, Compared to like our first year in China, for example, like it was just that was pretty tough because you know they don't use ovens; they only use like stovetops mostly. So nothing is baked, nothing is like,
Mm.
and for the most part, they only like do like they steam things or they make soups. So you don't get a lot of like crispiness. It's like everything's like a single texture, which is just like wet and mushy. Uh, so, I mean, they get texture from the ingredients more than anything. Like, so, like soft shell crab, you know, but it's still steamed.
Yeah.
Or like crunchy ingredients or whatever, like crunchy vegetables. But like, you know, a lot of stuff is just like noodles or dumplings that are like steamed and stuff like that. So in the beginning, it was like, oh, I just want some texture and like some like variety of cooking, you know. But now, you know, we like Jeff makes homemade pizzas all the time, um, and they're better than, you know, most of the restaurants around here. There's a really good pizza place in both. There's one in Hanoi and one in Saigon called Four Ps, and that might be my favorite pizza place in the world. Like,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it's so good. It may be that I'm just like forgetting what, like, I have a favorite pizza place in Chicago, and it's like not the same, you know, like Four Ps is a little bit more like gourmet-y, which I normally don't like, but this place is just really good. Yeah, I don't know. I know that's a bold statement, my favorite pizza place in the world, but like it's really good, and I don't know if they have any places in other countries, but they have two in Vietnam. Um, you know, you mentioned something about, oh, my YouTube. So, like, speaking of YouTube, do you spend much time looking at people's videos on YouTube, or like, do you more just create and not really look around?
I probably spend more time watching at the moment. Perhaps that's not exactly the diet I'm after or the balance I'm looking for, but
Uh-huh.
part of it is trying to tap into that sort of American energy that I feel is
Mm.
missing from my environment here. Because often I think if I stray too far from that kind of energy, then I will lose that part of myself. And
Mhm.
that is nightmarish to me because I don't want to slip into the shoes out here. I know that there's a distinction to be made, and I'm not throwing any shade at Germany, but I am an American, um, and there are certain attributes or characteristics of an American that just don't really find their way here. I
Yeah.
think there's a certain amount of electricity and creativity that comes out of Americans, even if they're not electric or creative. It's just somehow American to make these observations of life in a funny, silly, kooky, unique, interesting way. Whereas here
Uh-huh.
um, it's a bit more just direct and just square in a sense. There's not so many rounded edges, and I can appreciate it because you know, the United States is suffering a great deal of frustration, and maybe it's because it's just this wild, eclectic ball of personality, and it's just really tough for all of that to mingle. Here, it's a bit more monotone, so,
Mhm.
you know, I don't even know what a street tough looks like. I don't even know what to be afraid of. It's kind of like maybe in the woods there's a witch with a candy house that I'll just kind of, you know, walk the other direction when I see. But other than that, it's very vanilla, you know. And to me, I appreciate what that gives me. It gives me a safe environment for my son, for my family. There's a great educational system and blah, 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 quality of life. But
Mhm.
I have to say that humor is a big component in my definition of quality of life, whereas it's just really not even in the metric, you know, when
Yeah.
people, you know what I mean? So, what were we talking about? Your videos. Oh, and the balance. Yeah. So I
Oh
watch
yeah,
a lot of
YouTube, YouTube.
podcasts. I watch a lot of podcasts.
Okay.
A lot of them are comedy
Yeah.
based. What about you?
Okay. Lately, so you know, I've been because I'm trying to develop my own videos. I've been watching a lot of stuff on like video creation and creative content creation and stuff like that. And then a couple of artists who just like make art, even though the ones that I follow, I don't really like their art. I'm just kind of watching how they make their videos and like what their editing style is and their tone and stuff. Um, so yeah, and then like I think that this girl that I started following very recently. Her channel is the Bliss Bean, and she's like this 18-year-old or 19-year-old American girl. Like she was born in Lithuania, but she's basically American, and she's like her deal is she's all about productivity. So like she is like super into planning and all this stuff, and like she just makes me feel really inadequate because of how I live my life. But it's like really interesting, and you know, I don't remember how I stumbled on her, but like she has one video about like um, her study habits for learning foreign languages, because so she speaks Lithuanian and English, but she's taught herself Korean and Spanish because right now she's on a gap year, but she wants to go to school in Spain for college. So she's like taught herself Spanish. I think she probably took Spanish in school, but Korean, no. But she was like going over her like study habits for language, and like it is just insane. Like her notebooks like are so detailed and like all this stuff, and she's like, first I do this, and then I do this, then I have this service that like there's like a thing where you could it's like sort of like a social media thing where you put in your interests and your languages, and it'll connect you with other people around the world with similar interests and the same languages who are also trying to learn like your native language with their native language. So like you can communicate and like give each other pointers and do video calls and all this stuff, and you'll have something to talk about because you have similar interests. So anyway, she's like, I do this and this, and I'm like, oh man, I just do Duolingo for like 15 minutes a day, and that's it, you know. Like, yeah, and then I follow like a video photographer guy, and some people like that. I don't know, but I've been getting more and more into just YouTube in general, like kind of looking at different people's channels and how I don't know, people build their shows and stuff like that. It's pretty fun. It's like more interesting than I thought it would be.
I want to just really quickly insert this before I forget, because you were saying that when you ate some Vietnamese food, because it's not coming out of an oven, it all has that mushy consistency, which reminded me of a little German scenario, because mushy means pussy in German. Okay? So when I first moved here, I got my very first lahmacun, which is a Turkish pizza. It's stuffed with lettuce and salad and dressings, and it becomes quite. So I'm taking a bite, and everyone's wanting to know my reaction. You know, it's this moment, and I say, "Oh, it's good, but it's a little mushy," and they all started laughing, of course, because I was eating a little pussy for them.
That's so funny because in Japanese, when you answer the phone, you say mushy mushy.
Ah, pussy, pussy. That's funny. So we were talking about YouTube, and your videos to me are a breath of fresh air. They're a cold drink of water on a summer day. I really like what you're doing, and I feel like you're just in the beginning and you're not even sure what you're doing, which is really kind of cool, because as a viewer, I get that impression, and it makes me excited to see what the next episode will be like, because it can be totally different. That's the
Yeah,
impression I get, is that I have no idea what to expect. It might just be an overhead cam of you drawing. It might be you doing karate moves. I really have zero idea, and that's nice.
yeah. I mean, I feel like even from so like right now I'm in the middle of a four-part series, and the last part I'm probably going to publish on Friday. Um, and I'm already like by the time I published the second part, I was already like, oh, I don't even really want to finish this one. Like I
Wow.
was over it. Uh, but and I think I even mentioned that in like part three. I say, oh, why am I doing this? This is bad. Um, because I realized that so many things about that video. I mean, I I like that you like it, but I think most people that stumble upon it won't think it's very good or whatever, that like they want more, they want it faster, they want it like better packaged or whatever. I mean, I think I say some interesting things, but it's just like kind of like once in a while, and it's a lot of what I'm saying is just rambling and whatever. So, so yeah, so like by the time I feel like I'm evolving quickly, but because this is like a 4-part series, by the time I can only evolve so much within one sort of series because I can't like reshoot the film and like all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to being done with that, and then I'm gonna like try some other formats and do some other things. But I think the main thing is they're long, they're a little meandering, and that's just sort of not what I want to do. But I also don't know what I'm gonna do in the long run. Like I just don't think I'm gonna do like tutorials or things like that. So I have to figure out exactly what my point of view is or whatever. But yeah, it's so far it's pretty fun. I'm having a good time, and I'm looking forward to being better at everything. Like
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're creating is a kind of a niche, so there's got to be that niche audience out there, and those that don't fall into that probably will just see it and think, what is this? I'll go and find somebody who's gonna swallow a hornet or something or whatever, some crazy impulsive stuff. But in my mind, I feel as though that there'll be some sort of like turning of the tide where these, gotcha moments and all of this like, whoa, look at this, it's gonna blow your mind scenario. It's gonna fizzle a little bit, not to a great extent. It'll always be this big ticket item on YouTube, this kind of flashy stuff. But at the same time, I think because of the changes that are happening in the way people consume entertainment, and perhaps even due to the pandemic or to other viruses, that there'll be this interest for people to find something they can connect to on a personal level, because there's going to be a little bit of uh, I don't know, anxiety for the performers of these big productions to continue maybe in the future, and maybe because people are being, you know, confronted with their mortality, maybe they want a softer kind of, stream of entertainment, because to me, I don't know if it really helped us very much that we all binged Game of Thrones and Walking Dead prior to this pandemic. I don't think it helped. I don't think it set the
Yeah.
stage for what we really want in life. Um, sometimes I feel like maybe I'm just getting old and I don't have that ability to just see things for the pure entertainment value it possesses. I'm looking at it through a different lens of, is this good for the children, or, things like that? And is this good for my health, my sanity? Um, but I certainly am not able to consume such horror without it impacting me somehow. Game of Thrones, for example, I was very into, but there was a particular moment, I think it was maybe season 2 or 3, and I just said, that's it. I'm closing the book because it's just not a feel good situation for me, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. I can
And
see that. I can see that.
I don't know if the world's
I
going to
watched all.
follow suit, but where are you at on that? I mean, when I was a teen, for example, Clockwork Orange, I thought was the most amazing masterpiece, and I would be able to watch it at any given time if it were on, and it never affected me negatively. But I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, the last time I sat in front of it, I thought, "Oh boy, this is rough."
I don't know. I mean, I guess I to a certain extent I agree with you. I mean, like, and that's the case with kind of everything. Like some music that I used to listen to and be able to just like have on and whatever, like caustic music or whatever. Sometimes I want to turn that off, and it never used to bother me before. Um, I'm trying to think about my viewing habits, like on television. I mean, like I watched all of Game of Thrones. I recognize things that are bad, but it doesn't maybe turn me off. Like it certainly doesn't make me like not watch it. Um, but I guess I'm cognizant of the fact that, oh my gosh, that's not, I can't believe they made this or whatever, you know. Uh, but yeah, um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm on the same exact page as you, but I definitely think that I'm maybe starting to go in that direction. Uh, I think when you get older, you have to evaluate everything because you don't have all the time in the world anymore. So you're like, is this valuable to my time or not? And
Hmm.
some things it's like just not valuable anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know, there seems to be a change in the dynamic of shows in general where, I mean, when we were younger, there was more of a clear line separating the enemy and the hero. And I know it was
Oh
it was
yeah.
it was far more unrealistic then because, we're all shades of gray and so on and so forth. I get it. But it seems like the line is almost invisible now where
Yeah, for sure.
these characters can
Like
so easily.
every character is like bad and like you don't like most of the people in the show. And yeah, yeah. I mean that's really common now. Like there's all anti-heroes, not
Yeah.
heroes. And, I mean, I feel like maybe Mad Men was the beginning of that. Like Don Draper, like he was just a not likable person, and then like everyone in the office was not likable except for like Peggy and um, Joan. Like the two women were like somewhat likable, but Peggy did a lot of mean things to people and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I feel like things definitely have gone that way stylistically in television and film. Um, Less so in film, though. I mean, if you think about big films, they're still pretty formulaic and
That's
block.
true.
Like think about Marvel and stuff like that. Like heroes are heroes. Uh, I think what's interesting though, like, did you read comic books when you were younger, or
Not
no?
really when I was younger, but there was a time when I was a teenager that I was reading some manga. Alita the
Okay.
Battle Angel was what I used to read.
I'm not really familiar with like that storytelling style, but like when I was younger, I read Marvel comics a lot, and I didn't really read DC, but I was familiar with it. And I feel like at that time, I liked Marvel because it wasn't so black and white, and
Mm.
DC really was. And I think that like in the movies now, like Marvel has reversed it, and DC has reversed it. Like DC movies, like the heroes tend to be a little bit in between, and the Marvel heroes tend to be very clearly like. Although I guess that Civil War thing that came out was a little bit
A little
in
bit.
between, but that was written in like the 90s, whatever. I
Hmm.
mean the overall storyline of Civil War, maybe not the 90s. I don't know, but like anyway, yeah, I think that like big movies, like big blockbuster movies, they still kind of rely on an older formula, but like more independent films, it's like a little bit more like what we're talking about with like unlikable heroes and stuff like that. I think like what's kind of cool right now though is how prominent um, sort of like non-white voices are becoming, and
Hmm.
like those stories are becoming more interesting to me, uh, and getting more prominent. So I think that's cool, and it's kind of like reshaping storytelling in general a lot, which is I think good for Western culture or whatever.
I think so too. About 10 years ago, I said what really needs to happen is all of reality TV programming should, for the next decade, only revolve around immigrants, minorities, and homeless people, and seniors. That's it.
Yeah,
Lock it into
yeah.
place. Every single show focuses those people because it was getting so boring. And
Hmm.
what's up with the rest of the population? Why is it only these beautiful, sensational models, that are white primarily? It was
Yeah.
really so non-depictive of what life was like. I mean, especially, when I was living in Brooklyn. I mean, come on. Like, I see far
Yeah.
more interesting things happening right at the end of my street than on any one of these reality TV shows. So yeah, it is nice to see that start to change. It's not so pleasant when it feels forced, when you know that
Hmm.
there's just a cash grab and that, they're just creating this thing that doesn't really exist. But when it's authentic and genuine, it's the best thing ever. And there's a lot more of that today than there ever was, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, it's really interesting to think what entertainment will even be like in the future because it's so easy to get in that, tunnel vision of this is the way it is. Movies
Hmm.
will be released, 10 of them a week, movie theaters will be filled, Netflix is where we'll stream. And I don't know, I think there's going to be a big change. Whether it's just computer, generated actors, that are just completely manufactured by production studios, just saving money and saving, like, the fear, preventing the spread of virus or whatever. I don't know. Could be.
I mean, I imagine that things will just get more and more immersive. Like, you know, virtual reality will become a lot more pervasive, and like you'll enter an environment, and it'll be a little bit more open ended, almost like a game. Like I think those will get more and more kind of the norm. And like, a podcast would be again immersive. You won't just like watch it on a screen. You'll like sit in the room with the person and
mm,
like maybe see other people that are watching at the same time and interact with them, stuff like that. And I do think that like, you know, as artificial intelligence gets stronger, like, you know, you'll have an actor who's only exists as artificial intelligence, and you'll have stories that like start off with like a general premise, but the artificial intelligence actor kind of like makes decisions based on things that happen as it goes, so that it's unpredictable what's going to happen, stuff like that. I mean,
right.
it'll be really totally different than what we understand now.
I think
Yeah.
so. I think maybe, in the future, a movie will be like 20 terabytes of information because, as you were saying, it will be so immersive that you can play that movie and sit back and watch it unfold from start to finish. Or you could sit there, watch the movie, and decide, I'm going to knock that drink out of that person's hand. And then the whole entire movie the characters in it respond to that. And you take it into whatever direction you want if you want to play that day, kind of a scenario.
Yeah, yeah.
Things like that, like these multiple layers of possibility in terms of how you get entertained by a single movie.
Do you play video games
I don't.
like now? Now, yeah.
No, I
Have
haven't.
you had a chance to play any like more recently?
Well, I have a PS3 console,
Uh huh.
so
Yeah, that's
that's
old now.
basically it, when it comes to that. But every year when we visit the States, my son loves the big arcade rooms, the video game rooms, but that's not necessarily the same as home gaming. What about you? Do you play?
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, with the last time we were home, my husband's brother works for a big, like, game software company. So he has, like, he had a VR headset and some VR games. And those were just like insane. Like, one of them was like a horror-ish one where you're like on this like carnival ride and you like shoot things. And it's like very like scary. And yeah, those games are like so intense and like so different than like what we knew growing up. So I mean, I just feel like film and games are going to converge more and more because a lot of those games now have these like cinematic parts which are like movies, and like the graphics are almost so realistic you think that it's a real like shot thing and it's like all you know um, graphics or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I, I enjoy them, but I also think that they're like too much of a, like you said, like a black hole. Like I could just imagine myself playing games for hours and hours, and I would feel guilty about it because I like want to do other things that are more productive.
Yeah, most definitely. VR is something that I did tap into because my last phone was a Samsung and it was compatible with the Oculus Gear. So I had that and it was, I mean, I was completely blown away. I got it as just a gimmick because I saw the commercial. I was in the United States on holiday and I thought, oh, that's for my phone. They sell this thing. So I went on Amazon, I ordered it. It arrived the day that I was leaving. So I just got it out of the box. I had that whole afternoon. The flight was in the evening. I set it up, I put it on there in my folks' home, and I thought, oh my God, what? I had no idea that it was going to be that immersive. So then I put it on my mom's head, my dad's head, my sister, and all of that, and their reactions. That was the most fun that came out of that device was the holy shit from my mother, um, because that to me was like, wow, did we just leap 1,000 years into the future? What the hell? Because it was so hard to distinguish the reality. I mean, the graphics weren't necessarily there, but it worked on my
But it
brain and
felt like you were in another space completely. Yeah.
100%. And you get that anxiety that you're going to fall off the mountain or whatever it is. And I did play one of the horror ones. It's where the perspective is you lying in bed, and then this like little character is like jumping out from the shadows, and it was so terrifying, unbelievably terrifying. And I read that Ray Kurzweil, I guess he's the head of AI at Google, I think. He makes
Yeah,
predictions
yeah.
about the future. And he said years ago that virtual reality will be, I think, 98.9 or 99.8% indistinguishable from actual reality. And that date
Hmm.
is rapidly approaching. I think it's like maybe 10 years out from where we are today.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Do you think that that is something that will have XYZ impact on you, on society? What do you think?
Well, it's so the I think that it will be like a curve, right? Like in the beginning, only the elite will benefit from it, but as it gets, I mean, this is what Kurzweil says too. Like in the beginning, only a small group of people will benefit from it, but the technology will get better, and then it'll get more pervasive, and then also like what I was first thinking is that like only the creators, like the people who can create, are going to be very elite because they're going to have to learn like all these new skills based on that technology. But all of that like rapidly changes too. Like think about like before, like you had to learn CSS coding to make a website, and then like it got easier and easier. And now like anyone could just get like a Squarespace and make their own website. It'll be like that. Like so, it'll
Mm,
take time, but eventually, like you like how people like everyday people can become a YouTuber and like edit film and do a good job and like do like special effects and all this stuff. Same thing will happen with virtual reality. I mean, like people will be able to just like, and it'll be even more intuitive than what it is now because you'll be interacting with a fake environment. So like, just imagine like, okay, now I'm going to put some fire here, and it'll probably be voice activated. So like, you'll like talk to your environment and say, can I put fire right there? And then like fire will appear. You know what I mean? It'll
hmm
just be like so intuitive that like anyone will be able to create, but it'll take a while to get there. So I think it'll be cool, but it's just going to take time, and it's always getting through that hurdle of like you hope that gatekeepers don't hold it too tightly, right?
mm,
Like you
hmm
you hope that like someone is so greedy that they're like I'm the only person that can control who creates content in this virtual reality. Like that'll be the thing. But like it's like a dam. It'll be like a dam. Like they might think they could control it, but eventually there's going to be these little cracks, and then everyone will be able to get through it.
Yeah,
So that's what I think.
and I think that when we were talking about just how entertainment has changed over the decades, and how there's a bit of a more of a darker element and the anti-hero and so on and so forth. I think as VR advances and it gets to that intuitive state, I think that's when we'll maybe slide back into. I mean, for me, for example, if it is that intuitive and I can go fire, and basically be a wizard or a magician, basically. I think
Yeah,
I'd rather
yeah,
be in Candyland than Hades. You know what I mean? I'd rather be like Cotton Candy Cloud, go. Unicorn farting. M&Ms, go.
yeah, yeah.
Once we get the control, I think because it's so hard to resist. I mean, I'll go back to Games of Thrones one day and finish it off because it's so well made and it's so gripping. It's just that you have to be in the right place, I think, to consume it and so on. But if it were up to me, I mean, when we talked about video games as well, I always revert back to Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers, as being the best ever game. Whether it's Super Mario
Mhm.
1, 2, or 3, because it's such an immersive feeling that you have of this colorful, playful world that was just so much fun to be in. And I still to this day have had a lot of fun playing other games, but it doesn't match that experience, that feeling, that lingering feeling that you have, that love for it that you have. So I'm excited about AI and I'm excited about virtual reality. And I personally am not concerned at all because I will be older and I'll be able to travel anywhere and experience anything that's indistinguishable from.
Yeah.
Please, yeah, that sounds like a great retirement package. I'll take it. But I have to ask, what do you think it would be like, hypothetically speaking, if virtual reality was that advanced and you were just a teenager? How would you respond to that tech if you were 16 and that rolled out? Do you think it would change the way? I mean, for example, when you were 16, you had your interests, it created a path, and you went forward. Do you think
Mhm.
if that were to exist within your environment as a 16-year-old, that your path would have gone down a different route? Do you think it would be that?
Well,
Because teenagers are impulsive, they chase after rainbows, they just want to have fun, you know?
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, it definitely would have probably changed me. I do think that, like, when I was talking about that girl that I follow on YouTube, she's so young and she's like so good at the things that she's doing. And I feel like jealous that I wasn't born around the same time as her because they have access to so much that is just like able to make them grow much faster than I think that we had the opportunity for. Um, but that said, it is about access. It's about like, you know, I think like when I was growing up, like I asked my mom for a computer like every birthday, and like we just couldn't afford it. And my mom finally got me like this word processor in seventh grade that was like still not really a computer, and I was so mad. And I was at the age where I was like never home. Like I was always like hanging out with friends and like doing things. So I barely used it. So like it's hard to say, it's hard. Like I think when I was in my teen years, I was always out. I was like skateboarding and like doing things IRL, in real life with my friends. And I don't know that like kids these days, like they don't experience that, especially obviously right now in pandemic, but like they weren't really that much to begin with. I think a lot of younger kids are just like, they live in virtual worlds and a lot of their friends are online, and even their friends that are real life friends, they interact with almost as much online as they do in real life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really hard for us to imagine what that would be like because, we had such a different experience.
Totally.
But I definitely think that I would be a much different person. Uh, you know, I, 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 I didn't really have like a lot of guidance from my parents, like either of them. I like made most of my like even big decisions like where I went to college, what I studied, what my major was, and it was all based on like me just fumbling around. So I think it would have been really nice to have YouTube back then. To like, if I had a question, I could just look it up. Like for me, it was like I didn't know where to turn for that kind of information, and I think I didn't trust this sort of obvious, like my guidance counselor. I didn't really think that what they said mattered or whatever, you know. So yeah, I don't know. I think that like my life would be a lot different if I had access to that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of funny because back when we were younger, somebody had to tip you off. Somebody had to expose you. Somebody had to turn you on because there really wasn't this other option available. So basically, we kind of stumbled about as very naive people until we got the information passed over to us, whether it was musical or whatever it might be. But you
Yeah,
had to
yeah,
wait, you had to be patient.
yeah.
And it's kind of funny because today's teens, I don't know how much time they spend being naive. Like,
Hmm.
it's probably very difficult to be naive because either there's somebody telling you, or you're being shown it, or you overhear it and you just so quickly discover the entire history and origins of it by just doing a Google search instantaneously. I mean, we were living in
Yeah.
an age where you still had to go to the library
Uh-huh.
to get deeper information, you know? I mean, when you needed to do a report or look into a topic. Do you
Hmm.
remember the very first time you interacted with the internet?
I don't think I do remember. I mean, I remember sort of some like vague thing. I remember like the feeling of my first chat room and like how kind of exciting that was. Uh,
Because that's
but
all
I
it
don't
was
really
back
remember.
then, Brian. It was only chat
Yeah, it
rooms.
was.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
made our age
yeah.
demographic say, "Oh, what's the internet all about?" Because it was chat rooms.
Hmm.
That was it.
Yeah. Have you watched *Halt and Catch Fire*?
I haven't.
It's a TV show. It's a TV show from AMC. It's like been off the air for a while. I think it had like 3 seasons. It's really good. It was like about the beginning of the internet and like, um, but it's like a scripted show. It's not like a reality show or a documentary. It was really good. Good show if you have a chance. I think you'd like it because it was like all of the excitement of the beginning of the internet and like the beginning of computers, really. Like, um, kind of like a fictionalization of like the beginning of Apple in a way,
Mm.
like that era. Um, so it starts in the '80s and it goes through the early '90s or something like that.
Oh,
But
that's
yeah,
cool.
that was a good. That's what you reminded me of when you were talking about that.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought up chat rooms because the first experience I had with the internet was with Edgar and George, and we had heard so much about it that we had to find out for ourselves because none of us had a computer at home. And it was after I graduated high school at least. So I remember we drove to an internet cafe. We walked in and I said, "Yeah, we'd like to use the internet." And he's like, "Okay," and he logs us in or whatever. And we're sitting there just like literally like monkeys hitting, like, "Oh, oh, oh, oh." And I had to get up 3 separate times. I'm like, "I'm sorry, how do we get to a chat room? How do we chat?" And he's like, "Yeah, just go there." And I'm like, I come back, I'm like, "I'm sorry, I really don't know how." He's like, "Yeah, and then finally he's like, "Here, go here, do this. Okay, now you can talk." And he looks so like, enough of you already, you know? And we
uh,
sat there and we chatted and basically just turned into this troll fest where we were pretending to be this like blonde lady in her 30s or something. I don't know why it naturally gravitated towards that, but that's how we spent our hour
you'd
online.
probably heard about that. Like, I mean, that was like the thing in the beginning was people were all like talking about how you won't know who you're talking to. They could be anyone, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
And so
right.
people like that's like, oh, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, it almost seems it
uh,
would be strange to put your name or be yourself. It seemed like that's not what the platform was. Um,
yeah,
But yeah, that
Yeah.
was my first run in with the internet. And then finally we got a computer at home. And I remember, of course it was a dial-up connection. And of course it was a shared family computer. And it was in the kitchen. And I remember late at night I'd have to wait until everyone was asleep. And then I'd go over there, and like, and I'm like, hopefully no one wakes up. And then go to like these websites that had celebrities that were topless, and that was like this like incredibly
And you'd be waiting for it to load, like.
Yep. And even worse was that I printed a couple out because, of course, like, who has access to this? This is amazing, right? So it's like printing out a picture of Cameron Diaz in a swimming pool or whatever, so I can bring it to ITT Tech the next day to show Edgar, like, can you believe it? And just like sweating bullets as it takes 15 minutes to print this image out, hoping that nobody wakes up because it would be mortifying. No one
That's so
woke up.
I mean, like, I didn't really have access to a computer at home ever until like in my adult life. Um, so like I used computers at school when I got to school, uh, and I think even not even like when I went to Moraine, I didn't really use the computers there that much, um, just to like write papers or whatever, and then not till I got to UIC did I start using them like to do chat rooms and stuff like that. So that was like mid '90s. Not like I was probably pretty late really. And that's what I was kind of talking about. Like I think if I would have had a good computer when I was in my early teens, it might have set me down a path where I became a programmer. But like by the time I got one, I was like full on teenage rebellion, never home. Like I'd get home at like midnight or whatever, and barely do my homework and stuff like that. And I didn't really like I didn't have time to be like cerebral and introspective. I was just always like out, you know, having fun or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how we have one foot in like this technical dark age of sorts and one foot in this like incredible future world at the same time. And I mean, it might sound ignorant or maybe obtuse to suggest that we're the last, of the Mohicans in that sense. Like, there will never be another generation that will experience that unless, for what we perceive as the future world, actually is just like uh, a silly interpretation that literally will be perceived as a dark age itself because the future world will make it look, will dwarf it in size and so on. But I
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
hunch that maybe that's the end, like maybe the rest is just these different levels of technological breakthroughs. But I mean, we had a part where it was almost like zero tech in our lives, like nearly zero tech, when we were really young. I don't know about you, but we had, black and white television. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
it was
You had
so
a
different.
phone.
Yeah, one landline that everyone used, no cord, it wasn't
No,
cordless.
yeah, no call waiting. Like if you were on the phone, no one could call you.
Yeah. And you would have to argue about who gets to spend the phone time and so on. And everyone would hear your conversation because it was this like centrally located phone. Um,
It was like in the kitchen.
yeah.
Yeah,
When we were younger, there were not even any way to watch anything other than TV. No VHS, no Betamax tapes. There was nothing when we were really young.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
nothing. It was just television and just the networks, and it wasn't 24 hours a day even. It used to have that, white
Oh yeah, yeah.
noise
Midnight.
thing.
Yeah, it would like. Yeah, yeah.
It's so crazy. Like
I know.
almost the dark ages compared to the way things are today.
Yeah.
We only had pay phones. It's the one thing to me is that okay, yeah, life doesn't change much when you have a phone in your pocket as opposed to a payphone on the corner. Life doesn't change much when you have 1,000 channels streaming content and just a black and white TV. But GPS, man, like it's almost impossible for me to imagine how we even lived without GPS because every time I get in a car, it's absolutely necessary. Like I
Yeah.
can't imagine trying to take a road trip without GPS.
Yeah.
How did we do it? We did it. I did it. I mean, we
Yeah.
drove from
Well, I mean,
Chicago to
and
Florida and so on, but my God,
yeah, there are maps. There are maps.
maps.
You'd have to like use your map and like plot your course ahead of time. You didn't want to just like jump in the car and go. You'd be like, yeah, I want to follow this road. But yeah, you would, and you'd like, you'd be, if you'd stop somewhere, you'd be like, don't get too far from the interstate because you don't want to like not know your way back to the interstate because then we'd be lost or whatever. But
Hmm.
you'd also like go to a gas station and say, hey, how do I get to here or whatever? And they tell you, and they'd say, you turn left at the Kmart and whatever, you know. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, uh, when my husband first started like teaching abroad and stuff like that, it was before like smartphones, you know, like he
Wow.
had to like, figure things out, like the hard way. Wouldn't just like turn on your phone to figure out where you are. You'd have to like really, you know. I mean, even that wasn't that long ago. I mean,
Not really.
like GPS, like GPS on your phone. That's like 10 years, maybe a little longer, right?
Little long. I think it came with smartphones as they became the standard issue. Phone, everyone had it, but prior to having a smartphone in your possession, which I guess dates back, yeah, 10, 12 years is when the smartphones kind of tipped the scales. Before that, it seemed
Hmm.
like smartphones were just kind of like a niche product that, of course, that's not going to be what a phone is. That's a computer. That's not a phone. If you want a phone, you get a phone with a flip or buttons. Come on. Like, there'll always be these kinds of phones. That's just for people that have nothing better to do or something, I don't know. But yeah, I guess the tipping point was about 10 years ago. And I mean, I won't even go on a bike ride that's 20 minutes without GPS, showing me if it's a new location. I'm not
Yeah.
looking for a map. I'm not asking people on the street. I'm just like GPS, headphone in, and let's go. It seems so very much needed. Like, and the absence of it, if those satellites all went down, I think people would lose their fucking shit. Like, we rely so heavily on it. If someone had to bust out a
Yeah.
map to replace the experience of their GPS, I think people would be like, "What? Why didn't they teach us in school how to look at a map? What is this? What are you talking about? I'm supposed to use this? I can't. It's not gonna happen."
Do you remember Do you remember MapQuest, which was
Oh
like that
yeah,
era before GPS, but after internet? It's like you'd like print out your MapQuest map before you go somewhere, and then you'd have the directions to like the step-by-step directions.
totally. Actually,
That
I
was
guess
pretty good.
I cheated a little bit because those road trips I said I went on without GPS, they weren't with GPS, but they were with MapQuest printouts. Yeah, printing out
Yeah.
those pages for sure. Yeah, and it was awesome. Somebody just had to sit shotgun with MapQuest in their hand, and that would work. Yeah, what a world. It's incredible. It doesn't scare me at all, though. I don't know. I think because once you hit a certain age, no matter what happens, you're not going to really lose who you are. You're just going to, you know, either enjoy it or dislike it or whatever, but it's not going to be a threat to who you are,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
no matter what. But if I did have a time machine and I was able to travel in either direction, I would definitely go into the past first, and it would be a toss up between dinosaurs and the unveiling ceremony of the Great Pyramid of Cheops. I don't know,
Yeah.
it'd be a coin flip for that. What about you? Would you go future or would you go past?
I mean, the future, you don't know where you'd be going, right? You can't like
Right.
pick a place, so you don't know like and what if the world's gone in 100 years? So if you like say I want to check out 100 years from now, and like it's just like a big charred ruins, that'd be kind of sad. I mean, I guess it would depend on like if it was like a if you could just take a peek and decide if you want to stay before you like commit, right? I mean, I'm definitely super interested in what happens in the future, so I would want to check it out. But if I had like only one choice and it was permanent and whatever, I guess it would. I don't know. I don't know. I would probably still take roll the dice and look at the future. But if I could, there are definitely things in the past I'd want to see. I'd want to see ancient Rome, probably. I think that'd be really cool. However, I don't speak Latin, so I'd be like totally useless and
Mm.
not know, you know, English didn't exist then, even in like what is now England in Gaul, or Gaul is France, England was whatever. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, English didn't exist, so we'd be like useless. We'd just be like, I mean, maybe if our phones worked, we could like, put in a translator.
Hmm. Maybe I think you'd
Uh,
probably be better off just bringing your invisibility cloak with you and just considering it a spectator sport.
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Which
there's that
again
whole
goes back to,
Back to the Future. You don't want to get too
yeah, yeah. You
butterfly
don't want to
wingy.
mess up the timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you could go back in time and like and be immersed in it and not, be like someone out of time. Yeah, I mean, there's so much you could see. It would be really cool, but like just like Back to the Futuring into the past, I don't know if that'd be fun. You, going back to like the last maybe 67 years would be a safe bet. You could kind of like, you know, blend in. You just get some different clothes.
Hmm.
Try not to say too many weird things. Uh,
Heavy.
but like going back like to ancient times, you'd be like so out of your element. You'd probably just die by accident really quickly. you know.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be toxic even somehow, one way or another.
I just mean like you'd eat something that you shouldn't eat, or like I mean think about how convenient everything is now. Like you probably just starve to death unless you were in it. I mean, like imagine just showing up in a civilization where you can't speak the language. You'd have to beg for food. You couldn't get a job. You'd like, like
Hmm.
it would just be terrible. Yeah,
I mean, you could be a sorcerer or something like that, considering some of the knowledge you probably have with you. I mean, if you go far enough back, you start doing stuff like this, even. I mean, people are probably just gonna be like, oh, "What just happened?" So you might be able to survive off of parlor tricks to a certain extent.
maybe.
I don't know if I'd chance it though. I'd go invisibility cloak. I'd stand up on a hill and I'd see that pyramid. I'd see those dinosaurs. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think hearing me complain about not being able to get my hands on a sandwich, I don't know how well I'd fare if I tried to
Yeah,
integrate.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like no light, no heat.
Hmm.
Like everything's super analog.
Yeah, I don't think it would
like
go over so well to transplant myself there. But future world, I'd be very interested in too. If I had my second flight available to me, I'd like to go in the future. I don't think I'd like to go that far for the same reason though. I think it would be just way too foreign. Because I
yeah,
would not doubt that if we go far enough into the future that the human race as we know it is completely unrecognizable. I wouldn't doubt it. My theory of
yeah,
aliens always was that we are the aliens and that in the future we develop time travel, and that's why it's hard to put your finger on all of these visitations because it's us and we know where to hide. And the other thing is about these faces and heads. It's like, yeah, they're the conditions of the planet, the sun, the moon, the stars, the oxygen levels. It created this image of this face with these huge eyes, this green skin or whatever. Yeah, that's the uniformity that exists within the human race in the future. So I wouldn't want to go that far, that deep. into it, but I would love to go 50 years, 100 years to see that.
Yeah.
Because I think, as always, it's going to be a bunch of people saying, they said there'd be flying cars by now, and everyone just like being completely ungrateful for the advances. But I would be like, but what about this? This is like way better than a flying car. They'd be like, that you get that at 7-Eleven. That's nothing. Forget it.
Yeah. I mean, we're pretty lucky to be living where we are now. I mean, there are so many interesting, cool things.
That's for sure. I mean, we pretty much can travel to the past and the future in a way, because the entertainment out there is just so immersive and insane that we're living in the best of both worlds, kind of. We have access to both.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Hopefully we'll still be around for when, like what we were talking about, like virtual reality. I mean, virtual reality, you'll be able to see the dinosaurs pretty much like you're there.
Mm-hmm.
You just won't know for sure if it's exactly the way it was, but it'll seem like it's right,
Mm-hmm.
That'll be pretty cool.
Would you be opposed to a real life Jurassic Park?
Oh, I guess not. No, I think that Jurassic Park. I don't know. I think that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it would be as deadly as the movie is. Maybe it would be a bad idea, but I think they should try it if they can.
I'm so into it. I would love the news breaking that there's Jurassic Park in Costa Rica. I would love it.
I mean, at least the herbivores, right? Like
only.
Only. Yeah.
Why the hell would you
that
reanimate a T-Rex or a raptor?
The velociraptors? Yeah, that seems like a bad idea.
That's a bad idea. Yeah, that's a really bad idea. I mean, honestly, just bring back a brontosaurus and a woolly mammoth, and I'm stoked. That's enough. Like, I'll spend all day with that. Throw in an ankylosaurus for like some little dinosaur taxi rides to the different features. But other than that, it's not necessary. Hey, can you hold on 1 second? I got the doorbell. Yeah, let's wrap it up. I mean, it's been a great time having you on the show, Brian. Thank you so much. And thanks you, Rehashers, for tuning in. And check out this guy's videos. He's just starting down this path, so you can get this wonderful opportunity to go with him and see what happens. Links down below. Don't forget to subscribe to both of our channels and like the videos, because you know what? I mean, it feels good. There's a certain part of superficiality that exists that we all have to identify as true, and it's real.
Just want to be liked.
Just want to be liked. It feels good. So, yeah. With that said, until next time, I bid you adieu. I bid you farewell, and auf Wiedersehen.
All right. Take care.